Consciousness returned in stages. First, the weight of blankets. Then, morning light filtering through curtains I didn't remember closing. Finally, awareness that something fundamental felt wrong, though I couldn't name what. I sat up in my apartment, scanning the familiar space. My photography equipment lined the walls. Coffee mug from yesterday still sat on the desk. Everything exactly where it should be, except the sensation persisting under my skin, like I'd misplaced something vital and couldn't recall what. The bathroom mirror revealed a stranger's face. Mine, but marked. A faded yellow-purple bruise stretched across my left forearm. When had I gotten that? I touched my right temple gently, fingertips finding a small pink line, recently healed. The scar felt raised under my touch. No memory of the injury surfaced. Must have been clumsy recently. Tripped somewhere. Threats my head. The explanation satisfied my conscious mind, even as something deeper protested. My phone buzzed as I started the coffee maker. "Honey?" Mom's voice carried unusual tension. "How are you feeling this morning?" "Fine. Why wouldn't I be?" Silence stretched. Then, "Did you sleep well? Any headaches?" "Mom, I'm 26. I think I can manage a Tuesday morning." Of course you can." She sounded like she was convincing herself. "Your father and I just wanted to check in. Make sure you're taking those vitamins Dr. Reynolds prescribed." I opened the medicine cabinet. A bottle of supplements I didn't recall buying sat on the top shelf. The label read, "Post-viral immune support, prescribed by a Dr. Reynolds whose name triggered nothing." "Sure, I'm taking them." "Good. That's good. He said they're important for your recovery." "Recovery from what?" Another pause. "The virus you had last month, remember? You were quite run down." Had I been sick? The timeline felt slippery, like trying to grasp water. Right, the virus. "We love you, sweetheart. Call if you need anything at all." The conversation left me unsettled in ways I couldn't articulate. I drank my coffee standing at the window, watching the city wake up below. Chicago moved like it always did. Traffic, people, life continuing in familiar patterns. So why did I feel like an observer rather than a participant? Work provided distraction. I had a gallery opening that afternoon, a collection of urban landscapes I'd shot over the past year. The gallery had handled my calendar while I was resting. Megan said, voice purposefully light. "Nothing you didn't sign off on before." Before, she repeated, like the word itself could hold me steady. At least I assumed I'd shot them over the past year. Looking at my own photographs felt like viewing someone else's work. Technically proficient, compositionally strong. But the memories of taking them remained frustratingly vague. The gallery space hummed with opening reception energy when I arrived. White walls, track lighting, my name on a placard by the entrance. People milled about with wine glasses, making the appropriate appreciative noises. I smiled, shook hands, answered questions about shutter speeds and editing choices. That's when I felt it. The weight of someone's attention. Different from the casual gallery browsing. Focused. Intense. I turned. He stood across the room, studying a black and white shot of the Chicago skyline at dawn. Tall. Dark hair that fell just slightly too long to be strictly professional. A charcoal suit that fit like it had been made specifically for his frame, jacket open over a white shirt. No tie. A gold chain caught light at his throat. As if sensing my gaze, he looked up. The moment our eyes met, the world narrowed. Sound faded. People became background noise. I couldn't look away. He had the kind of face that belonged in old Italian films. Sharp cheekbones. Strong jaw shadowed with deliberate stubble. Eyes so dark they appeared almost black from this distance. And something else. Something in his expression that looked like pain wrapped in hope. My heart kicked against my ribs. Hard. Unexpected. He started walking toward me. Not rushed, deliberate. Each step measured like he was crossing a minefield. "These are remarkable." His voice threats me like whiskey. Smooth with an edge that burned. Accented. Italian, maybe. "You have an exceptional eye." "Thank you." I managed to sound professional despite my pulse hammering in my throat. "Have we met before?" "No." The word came out too quickly, too sharp. He softened it with a careful smile. I would remember. It's just... I gestured vaguely between us. You seem familiar somehow. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Perhaps I have one of those faces. I don't think so. We stood there, trapped in a moment that stretched too long to be comfortable, but neither of us moved to break it. Up close, I could see a thin scar cutting through the right side of his neck, just above his collar. Old. Well-healed. The kind of mark that told a story I suddenly wanted to hear. I'm Giovanni. He extended his hand. Olivia. When our palms touched, electricity shot up my arm. Not metaphorical. Actual physical sensation like touching a live wire. I gasped. He didn't let go immediately. His fingers wrapped around mine with careful pressure, thumb resting against my pulse point. Are you all right? His eyes searched my face with an intensity that bordered on desperate. Fine. Static electricity. Had to be. Sorry. Weird moment. Not weird. He released my hand slowly, reluctantly. Unexpected, maybe. The name echoed in my head. Giovanni. It resonated somewhere deep, like a song I'd heard once in a dream, and couldn't quite recall upon waking, but I was absolutely certain we'd never met. I would have remembered this. Him. The way he looked at me like I was the only person in the room. In the city. In the world. Can I ask you something? He stepped slightly closer. Close enough that I caught his scent. Cedar and something darker. Expensive. Would you allow me to take you for coffee? I'd like to discuss your work. I have a business that might benefit from your particular vision. Every rational instinct screamed that accepting was foolish. I didn't know this man. Didn't know anything about him except that he made my skin feel too tight, and my thoughts scatter like startled birds. Okay. His expression shifted. Relief flooded his features so completely that for a moment he looked younger, vulnerable. Then control slammed back into place and he became polished again. Composed. There's a place nearby. We could walk? I nodded, collected my jacket, told the gallery owner I'd return shortly. Giovanni held the door for me, his hand hovering near but not touching the small of my back as we stepped into late afternoon sunlight. The cafe was quiet. Corner table. 2 cappuccinos neither of us drank much of. He asked about my photography, how I chose subjects, what drew me to urban landscapes. His questions were thoughtful, specific, like he'd studied my work carefully before approaching. But underneath the professional conversation, tension thrummed. The air between us felt charged. Every accidental brush of fingers when reaching for sugar packets sent that same electric jolt through my nervous system. You mentioned a business? I finally asked. Import-export. International ventures. We're expanding our marketing presence, and your eye for capturing authentic urban beauty would be invaluable. Vague. Deliberately so. But something in the way he said it made me think the business was more complex than simple import-export. And I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't really about hiring a photographer. Why do I feel like I know you? The question escaped before I could stop it. Giovanni went very still. I don't know. You're lying. Perhaps. He met my gaze directly. Or perhaps some connections transcend logical explanation. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you right now. Before I could push further, my phone rang. Mom again. I silenced it, but Giovanni noticed. You should answer. Family is important. How do you know it's family? Lucky guess, but his eyes held knowledge he wasn't sharing. I excused myself, stepped outside to call Mom back. She answered immediately, voice tight with poorly concealed anxiety. Sorry, honey. I know you're working. I just wanted to remind you about taking those vitamins, consistently. Doctor, Reynolds was very clear about the dosage. I took them this morning. Good. That's good. Are you feeling all right? Any dizziness? Confusion? Mom, what's going on? You're acting strange. Nothing. Nothing's going on. I'm just being overprotective. Mother's prerogative. She forced lightness into her tone. Love you. When I returned, Giovanni was standing, jacket back on. I should let you return to your gallery. You haven't told me about this job opportunity. Next time. He pulled out a business card. Heavy stock. Embossed lettering. Just a name and phone number. Call me, when you're ready. Ready for what? He studied me for a long moment. To take a chance on something that doesn't make sense. Then he was gone, walking away down the sidewalk with the kind of confidence that came from never doubting his welcome anywhere. I stood holding his card, my thumb tracing the raised letters of his name, Giovanni Moretti. The name meant nothing. Should mean nothing. So why did it feel like remembering something I'd lost? I called him 3 days later, not because I wanted to discuss business, because the memory of his dark eyes and careful touch had invaded every quiet moment since the gallery, because his name kept looping through my thoughts like a song I couldn't shake. He answered on the second ring. Olivia. My name and his accent made my stomach flip. I hoped you'd call. About the photography work. Of course. A pause waited with things neither of us said. Are you free this evening? We could discuss details over dinner. I should have said no. Should have insisted on a professional meeting during daylight hours in a crowded cafe. Instead, yes, escaped before logic could intervene. The restaurant was tucked into a side street I'd walked past 100 times without noticing. Intimate. Warm lighting. The kind of place that required reservations weeks in advance. But when Giovanni gave his name at the door, the host's entire demeanor transformed. Mr. Moretti, your usual table is ready. We were led to a corner booth. Private. Perfect sightlines to the entrance, but invisible from most of the dining room. The waiter materialized immediately with wine I hadn't ordered, pouring with practiced deference. You come here often? I asked. I've been a patron for years. Giovanni settled into his seat with easy familiarity. The owner is an old friend. The conversation flowed. He asked about my work. Not surface questions, but detailed inquiries about composition choices, editing philosophy, why I preferred shooting during golden hour. Questions that suggested he'd studied my portfolio thoroughly. You mentioned urban landscapes, he said, leaning forward slightly. But I noticed several storm photographs in your collection. Rain, thunderclouds. Why? I love rain. The admission came automatically. Always have. There's something about the way it transforms familiar places into something new. His expression shifted. Relief washed over his features so completely it stopped my breath, like I'd answered a question he'd been desperate to ask but couldn't. What was that? I demanded. What? That look. Like I'd just said exactly what you needed to hear. Giovanni's jaw tightened. Perhaps you did. You're doing it again. The cryptic non-answers. I apologize. He reached across the table, fingers hovering near, but not quite touching mine. Some things are difficult to explain with words. Before I could press further, the waiter arrived with appetizers I didn't recall ordering. Giovanni had anticipated my preferences perfectly. The octopus dish I would have chosen. No olives anywhere in sight. Lucky guess? I asked pointedly. Observant. His hand finally closed over mine. The electric sensation returned. Stronger this time. You're very easy to read. Except I wasn't. I knew that about myself. Most people found me guarded. Difficult to know. But Giovanni navigated my reactions like he'd mapped them years ago. The meal stretched into hours. Wine flowed. Conversation ranged from photography to travel to philosophy. He spoke Italian occasionally, musical phrases that made my pulse quicken, despite not understanding the words. When I asked what he'd said, he'd translate something innocuous that didn't match the intensity in his eyes. Tell me about your family, he said during dessert. Mom and dad in the suburbs. Older sister Lauren. Pretty standard. You're close with them? Very. Though lately Mom's been... I hesitated. Overprotective? Calling constantly. Asking strange questions about my health. Perhaps she has reason to worry. What's that supposed to mean? He studied me for a long moment. Nothing. Mothers worry. It's universal. But the way he said it suggested knowledge he wasn't sharing. Again. We left the restaurant near midnight. Giovanni insisted on walking me home despite the distance. Chicago streets were quieter now, our footsteps echoing off brick and glass. He maintained careful space between us, close enough to be protective, far enough to be respectful. Can I see you again? He asked when we reached my building. This wasn't about business, was it? No. At least he was honest about that. Then what is it about? Getting to know you. His hand came up, fingers trailing along my jawline with aching gentleness. If you'll allow it. I should have pushed for real answers. Should have demanded he explain the familiarity, the careful choreography, the way everyone around him acted like he was someone important. Instead, I nodded. He left without kissing me, but the ghost of his touch lingered on my skin long after he disappeared into the night. The next morning, flowers arrived at my apartment. White roses. 2 dozen. No card, but I knew who sent them. When I called to thank him, he answered like he'd been waiting. There's an art exhibit opening tonight. Come with me. Giovanni, please. That single word, weighted with something close to desperation, shattered my defenses. The days blurred together after that. Giovanni appeared in my life with increasing frequency. Always polite. Always asking permission, but always there. At the coffee shop where I edited photos. Outside the gallery after a client meeting. Walking his route to my building somehow aligned perfectly with my schedule. I mentioned it to Mom during one of her daily check-ins. There's this man, I started. A man. Her voice pitched higher. Tell me everything. I described Giovanni. His intensity. The way he looked at me like I was the answer to a question he'd been asking his entire life. What's his name? Mom asked. Giovanni Moretti. Silence. Then, that's wonderful, honey. I'm so happy for you. You don't even know him. I'm sure you have good judgment. When can we meet him? The enthusiasm felt wrong. Forced, like she was reading from a script. Maybe soon, I said carefully. Good. That's good. Your father and I would love that. And Olivia? Are you still taking those vitamins Dr. Reynolds prescribed? Yes, Mom. Every day? Consistently? Why does everyone keep asking me about these vitamins? Because they're important. Her tone sharpened slightly. For your recovery. From a virus I don't remember having. Another pause. Memory can be tricky sometimes. Just keep taking them, okay? Megan showed up at my apartment that afternoon unannounced. She brought coffee and pastries and a worried expression she couldn't quite hide. So, she settled onto my couch. Mom called me. Said you're seeing someone? News travels fast. She seemed excited, which is weird because Mom doesn't usually get excited about your dating life. I know. I sat across from her. Everything's been weird lately. How are you feeling? Megan leaned forward. Any headaches, dizziness, confusion? Why does everyone keep asking me that? Because we care. But her eyes slid away from mine. Have you been taking the vitamins? Jesus Christ, Megan. What is with the vitamins? They're important. Dr. Reynolds was very specific about... I don't even remember seeing Dr. Reynolds. She flinched. Actually physically recoiled. You were really sick. It's natural to forget some details. Is it? I stood, pacing. Because I don't remember being sick at all. And now there's this man who looks at me like he knows me. And everyone's acting strange. And I keep having this feeling like I'm missing something crucial. Megan stood too, reaching for my hands. You're overthinking. The virus probably left you feeling off balance. Give it time. But she wouldn't meet my eyes when she said it. Lauren called that evening to cancel our planned sister dinner. Work emergency. I'm so sorry. You never cancel. I know. It's just... things are complicated right now. Her voice sounded strained. But I'm glad you're seeing someone. Mom told me about Giovanni. Of course she did. She said he sounds nice. She's never met him. Well, when she does, I'm sure it'll be fine. The forced casualness made my skin crawl. Giovanni took me to another dinner 2 nights later. Different restaurant, same excessive deference from staff. This time I noticed how other patrons looked at him. Respectful. Wary. Like he was someone whose attention you wanted, but whose anger you feared. Who are you really? I asked over wine. A man who runs an import business. People don't react to import businessmen like you're dangerous. His expression went carefully neutral. Perhaps I have an imposing presence. That's not an answer. It's the one I can give you right now. He reached across the table, capturing my hand. Can that be sufficient? For now, I should have said no. Should have demanded truth or walked away. But when he looked at me with those dark, pleading eyes, I found myself nodding despite every warning bell ringing in my skull. Because the truth was, I didn't want to walk away. Whatever this was, whatever he wasn't telling me, the pull between us felt stronger than reason, stronger than fear, stronger than the growing certainty that everyone in my life was lying about something I desperately needed to know. During these 2 weeks since our first meeting at the gallery, Giovanni became woven into the fabric of my daily life in ways that should have felt invasive, but somehow didn't. He'd text good morning before I'd finished my first cup of coffee, send flowers on random Tuesdays for no reason, except he'd seen them and thought of me, show up outside my favorite editing cafe with an umbrella when the weather forecast predicted rain I hadn't checked. "This is moving fast," I told him one evening as we walked along the lakeshore. The water reflected city lights, creating paths of gold and silver on black surface. "Is it?" His hand found mine, fingers threading through with practiced ease. "Time is subjective. That's not an answer. Would you prefer I slow down?" He stopped walking, turning to face me fully. "Because I can, if that's what you need." What I needed was for him to make sense, for this overwhelming pull between us to have logical explanation. Instead, I shook my head. "No, don't slow down." Relief transformed his features. He pulled me closer, forehead resting against mine. "Good. Because I don't think I could." The kiss that followed erased every rational thought. His mouth moved against mine with desperate hunger, tempered by careful control. Like he'd been starving, but didn't want to devour me too quickly. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the world felt tilted. Giovanni took me to places he claimed were his favorites. A botanical garden on the city's edge where private sections required special access he somehow possessed. We walked through greenhouses full of orchids and tropical plants, the humid air making my skin damp. He knew the names of flowers I'd never heard of, could identify species with casual expertise. "How do you know all this?" I asked, touching a blood-red bloom. "I pay attention to beauty." His eyes never left my face when he said it. Another evening, a rooftop restaurant I'd photographed once but never visited. Too expensive, too exclusive. But the host greeted Giovanni by name, led us to a table overlooking the entire city skyline. Chicago spread beneath us like scattered jewels. "This view," I breathed, already mentally composing shots. "It's better during storms." Giovanni sipped wine, watching me instead of the scenery. "The lightning makes the city look alive. Dangerous and beautiful simultaneously." Something about that specific observation triggered déjà vu so powerful I had to grip the table edge. I'd been here before. I was certain of it. Stood in this exact spot, watching storm clouds roll across Lake Michigan while rain hammered the glass barriers. "You okay?" Giovanni's hand covered mine immediately. "Have I been here before? With you?" His jaw tightened. "Why would you think that?" "I don't know. It just feels..." I trailed off, unable to articulate the sensation. "Familiar?" He supplied quietly. "Yes." He studied me for a long moment. "Perhaps some places resonate with people. Strike chords we don't understand." But the way he said it suggested he understood perfectly. Back at my apartment one night, I noticed more inconsistencies. High-end camera lenses I definitely didn't own last week now sat in protective cases on my equipment shelf. A collection of photography books about Italian architecture filled a gap I hadn't known existed. Designer jacket hanging in my closet with tags still attached, in exactly my size and preferred style. I called Megan. "Did you put stuff in my apartment?" "What? No. Why would I do that? There's equipment here I don't remember buying. Expensive equipment." Silence stretched too long. "Maybe you're forgetting small purchases?" "The virus really took it out of you." "Megan, a $3,000 lens isn't a small purchase. Have you been taking your vitamins?" She deflected with the question everyone kept asking. "Dr. Reynolds said recovery issues could persist if you're not consistent with treatment." I wanted to scream. Instead, "Yes, I'm taking them." "Good, that's good. Maybe the purchases will come back to you once the supplements rebuild your system." But that didn't explain the jacket with tags attached. Didn't explain books I'd never ordered arriving with no shipping record. Mom called during my lunch break 3 days later. Honey, Dad and I were thinking, why don't you bring Giovanni for dinner this weekend? We'd love to meet him. You've never been this enthusiastic about anyone I've dated. That's not true. We're always happy when you're happy. Her voice carried forced brightness. And you sound so happy when you talk about him. I barely talk about him. You mention him every time we speak. She paused. Which is wonderful. We just want to get to know him. Is that so strange? It was. Everything about their reaction was strange. But I agreed anyway. Partly to see how they'd interact with Giovanni. Partly because refusing felt like it would confirm suspicions I couldn't yet name. Giovanni picked me up Saturday evening for the drive to my parents' suburban home. He wore dark slacks and a burgundy button-down, the collar open to reveal that gold chain I'd grown accustomed to seeing. Casual elegance that probably cost more than my rent. Nervous? I asked as we merged onto the highway. Should I be? Most people are nervous meeting parents. I'm not most people. He glanced at me, one hand leaving the steering wheel to rest on my thigh. And I suspect your parents will be gracious. Something about that word choice bothered me. Not welcoming or kind. Gracious. Like he expected them to perform a role. Mom practically vibrated with tension when she opened the door. Giovanni, so wonderful to finally meet you. Come in, come in. Robert, they're here. Dad emerged from the living room, hand extended for a shake that Giovanni accepted with firm professionalism. Mr. Parker, thank you for inviting me into your home. Call me Robert, please. Dad studied Giovanni with an intensity that bordered on examination. Olivia's told us you work in import-export? International trade. Among other ventures. They settled into conversation about business, markets, global economics. I helped Mom in the kitchen, watching her hands shake slightly as she arranged appetizers. You okay? I asked quietly. Fine. Just want everything to be perfect. She forced a smile. He seems nice. Very polished. Mom, what's going on? Why are you acting weird? I'm not acting weird. I'm being a mother meeting her daughter's new boyfriend. But her eyes wouldn't hold mine when she said it. Dinner passed with strange undercurrents I couldn't identify. Giovanni charmed my parents effortlessly, asked questions about their lives, their work, their interests, shared stories about his own family in Italy, most of whom were apparently deceased. He described his childhood in Milano with vivid detail that made Mom tear up. You've been through so much, she said, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. I'm glad you found Olivia. So am I, Susan. He looked at me when he said it. More than you know. The familiarity jarred me. When had they transitioned to first names? Why did my parents treat Giovanni like he was already family rather than someone they'd just met? After dinner, Dad pulled Giovanni aside for what he called a quick chat in his study. I helped Mom load the dishwasher, watching her carefully. You really like him, I observed. Of course. He obviously cares about you deeply. She rinsed a plate, movements mechanical. That's all we've ever wanted. For you to be happy and cared for. Why does it sound like you already knew that? Before tonight? Her hands stilled. Mothers have intuition. That's not an explanation. Olivia. She turned to face me fully. Sometimes we have to trust that people are doing what's best, even if we don't understand all the reasons why. What does that mean? It means Giovanni is good for you, and that's what matters. Before I could press further, the men returned. Giovanni thanked my parents with genuine warmth, promised we'd visit again soon. The drive back to the city was quiet. I stared out the window, processing the evening's strangeness. They liked you, I finally said. I'm glad. He reached for my hand. Their approval means something to me. Why? You barely know them. Barely know me, really. Don't I? His thumb traced circles on my palm. Sometimes connections transcend timelines. You keep saying cryptic things like that. I know. He brought my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. I'm sorry. Some truths are difficult to speak. Try anyway. He pulled the car into a spot outside my building but didn't release my hand. What if I told you that every moment with you feels like coming home? That I know your preferences because I pay attention to everything about you? That the way you move, speak, laugh, all of it is cataloged in my memory because you're the most important person in my world? My heart hammered. That's impossible. We've known each other 2 weeks. Is it impossible? His free hand cupped my face. Or is it just improbable? Giovanni, I'm not asking you to understand. Just to trust. He kissed me softly. Can you do that? I should have said no. Should have demanded real answers instead of poetic evasions. But looking into his dark eyes, seeing vulnerability wrapped in desperate hope, I found myself nodding. Okay, I whispered. He kissed me again, deeper this time. And for those suspended moments, the questions faded. The inconsistencies didn't matter. Only this did. Only him. Even if every instinct screamed I was missing something crucial. Giovanni invited me to a formal dinner with his business associates, 3 weeks after we'd first met. The restaurant was downtown, tucked into a building I'd photographed once but never entered. Private dining room, dimmed lighting, an atmosphere that prickled my skin with unease before we'd even sat down. You're sure about this? I asked in the car, smoothing my emerald dress. Giovanni had sent it to my apartment with a note saying only for tonight. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. I want them to meet you. His hand rested on my knee, warm through silk. You're important to me. They should know that. The room held maybe 15 men when we arrived. All older than Giovanni. All watching us with identical expressions of careful assessment. The energy reminded me of nature documentaries. Predators sizing up territory. A tall man with silver-streaked hair approached immediately. Giovanni. They embraced with familiarity that spoke of years. And this must be Olivia. Franco Bellini, Giovanni introduced. My oldest friend and most trusted advisor. Franco's handshake was firm but brief. His eyes never left my face, studying with an intensity that made me want to step backward. Giovanni speaks of you constantly. It's a pleasure. But his expression suggested pleasure was the wrong word. Concern, maybe. Or calculation. The dinner stretched through multiple courses. I sat beside Giovanni, his hand occasionally finding mine under the table. The men discussed shipping routes, international markets, regulatory challenges in terms that sounded legitimate, but felt coded. Like they were speaking a language I almost but didn't quite understand. And your work, Miss Parker? One of the older men leaned forward. Giovanni mentioned you're a photographer? That's right. Urban landscapes, mostly. Beautiful and talented. He raised his wine glass in salute. Our Giovanni is a lucky man. The way he said our made my stomach tighten. Like Giovanni belonged to them. Or they to him. Franco watched me throughout the meal with unnerving attention. Not hostile, exactly. More like he was checking for something specific, and couldn't find it. Once, when I reached for water, he exchanged a loaded glance with Giovanni that I couldn't interpret. Halfway through dinner, one of the younger associates addressed me directly. How are you settling back into... He cut himself off so abruptly his fork clattered against his plate. How are you settling into the relationship? The correction was too obvious, too jarring. Settling back implied I'd been somewhere before, but I'd never met these people. Never been in this room. Fine, I managed. Everything's been unexpected, but good. Giovanni's hand tightened on mine. When I glanced at him, something raw flickered across his features before control slammed back into place. After dinner, we drove to my apartment in silence. Giovanni parked, but made no move to leave the car. Come up, I said. Not quite a question. He studied me for a long moment. Are you sure? Yes. My apartment felt smaller with him in it. He moved through the space like he was relearning geography he'd once known by heart. Pausing at the window, trailing fingers along the bookshelf, standing in my bedroom doorway with an expression I couldn't read. Giovanni? He turned, crossed the room in 3 strides, pulled me against him with careful urgency. Tell me this is real. That you want this. It's real. My hands found the buttons of his shirt. I want this. The first time we made love, my body responded with terrifying familiarity, like muscle memory overriding conscious thought. Every touch felt simultaneously new and ancient. Giovanni whispered Italian against my skin, phrases I didn't understand, but that made heat pool low in my belly. Sei mia, he breathed. Sempre mia. The words resonated in ways I couldn't explain, made something deep inside me ache with recognition. Afterward, he fell asleep with his arm around my waist, face buried in my hair. I lay awake, listening to his breathing even out. Careful not to wake him, I slipped from bed and grabbed my robe. His jacket hung over my desk chair. I shouldn't have looked. Knew I was crossing a line. But my hands moved before reason could stop them, fingers sliding into the inner pocket. Photographs. Maybe a dozen. All of me. My breath caught. I shuffled through them with shaking hands. Me in a white dress, laughing. Me and Giovanni with arms wrapped around each other, both wearing rings. Me on a beach in sundress I'd never owned. Me in front of buildings I'd never visited. One stopped my heart. Wedding photograph. Professional. I wore a lace gown, held a bouquet of white roses. Giovanni stood beside me in a tuxedo, looking at me like I hung the moon. We were surrounded by people I'd never met, in a church I didn't recognize. I shouldn't have looked, but a folded invoice peeking from Giovanni's jacket pocket snagged my attention. La Primavera framing, custom archival mount, 16 and 20 rush. The description meant nothing and everything. A frame for what? For whom? I slipped the paper back, palms suddenly damp. The question pulsed in my ears all night. What are you hiding from me that feels like it belongs to me? I spun. Giovanni stood in the bedroom doorway, pulling on his pants. His eyes went to the photographs in my hands. All color drained from his face. What are these? My voice came out strangled. I can explain. You have pictures of us getting married. Married, Giovanni, and I don't remember any of it. He moved toward me slowly, hands raised like I was a spooked animal. Please, let me explain. How long have you been lying to me? I haven't lied. I've just omitted certain truths. That's the same thing. The photos scattered across my desk as I threw them down. Who are you? Who am I? What the hell is happening? You need to calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. You've been pretending we just met when apparently we're married? Or were married? I pressed my palms against my temples. I don't understand. I know. His voice cracked. I know you don't. But there are reasons. Good reasons why we've done this. We? Who's we? He reached for me. I stepped back. Don't touch me right now. Pain flooded his expression. Olivia, please, trust me. Trust you? You've been lying since the moment we met. Not lying, protecting. From what? He opened his mouth, closed it, struggled visibly with whatever he wanted to say. I can't tell you that, not yet. The doctors. Doctors? What doctors? Please. He looked desperate now, broken. Please just give me time to do this right. Do what right? Help you remember. The words hit like a physical blow. Remember what? Us. Our life. Everything you forgot. My knees gave out. I sat hard on the bed, staring at him. I have amnesia. Yes. From what? An accident. 6 weeks ago. You were in the hospital for 2 weeks. When you woke up, you'd lost the last 2 years of memory. 2 years. The vitamins. The constant questions about my health. Mom's forced enthusiasm. Megan's careful monitoring. Everyone acting like they were reading from a script. Everyone knows, I whispered. My family. My friends. They're all in on this. Giovanni nodded miserably. And you what? Decided to make me fall in love with you all over again instead of just telling me the truth? The doctors advised it. Said forcing the memories could cause more damage. That recreating our relationship naturally would be safer. Safer. I laughed. Hysterical. Broken. You think this is safer? Letting me think I'm going crazy? I'm sorry. He dropped to his knees in front of me. I'm so sorry. But I couldn't lose you. And if telling you the truth meant risking more damage, I couldn't. Get out. Olivia. Get out of my apartment. Now. He stood slowly, collected his jacket, paused at the door. I love you. That's real. Everything between us is real. Even if you don't remember it yet, how would I know? Tears streamed down my face. How would I know what's real when everyone's been lying to me? He left without another word. The door clicked shut. I sat surrounded by photographs of a life I couldn't remember. with a man I'd fallen for who turned out to be my husband, and tried to figure out which way was up. My phone buzzed. Megan. Like she had some sixth sense for catastrophe. I answered. Did you know? Silence. Then quietly. Yes. How long? Since the beginning. Since you woke up in the hospital. And you said nothing. We were trying to help. The doctors said. I don't care what the doctors said. I was shouting now. You lied to me. For weeks. You let me think I was losing my mind. I'm sorry. Her voice broke. I'm so sorry. But you have to understand. We were trying to protect you. By lying. By giving you the chance to fall in love again without the pressure of remembering. By letting it happen naturally. None of this is natural, Megan. None of it. I hung up. Turned off my phone. Lay down on sheets that still smelled like Giovanni, and stared at the ceiling while my world fractured into pieces I couldn't fit back together. I spent 3 days in a fog. Didn't answer calls. Didn't leave my apartment. Just sat surrounded by those photographs and tried to force memories that wouldn't come. On the 4th day, I started investigating my own life like it belonged to a stranger. Bank accounts first. I logged into the app on my phone and found transactions I'd never made. Deposits from sources I didn't recognize. Withdrawals at locations I'd never visited. And worse, joint accounts. My name linked with Giovanni Moretti on checking, savings, and investment portfolios worth more than I'd earn in a lifetime. My passport came next. I dug it from the drawer where it should have been gathering dust. Instead, stamps filled pages. Italy. Multiple trips to Milano, Roma, Firenze, all within the past year. Dates I couldn't account for. Places I had no memory of seeing. The calendar on my laptop held deleted appointments that recovery software pulled back from digital graves. Doctor visits, dress fittings, venue tours, wedding planning spreadsheets hidden in archived folders. Every piece of evidence screamed the same impossible truth. I'd lived 2 years I couldn't remember. Lauren's apartment was 20 minutes away. I didn't call ahead. Just showed up and pounded on her door until she answered, face pale with worry. Olivia. Tell me everything. I pushed past her into the living room. Right now. No more lies. She closed the door slowly. You should sit down. I don't want to sit. I want the truth. The truth is complicated. Try me. Lauren sank onto her couch, hands twisting together. 6 weeks ago, you were driving back from a photography session, rural area, about 2 hours outside the city. Giovanni was in a business meeting downtown. You were alone. And someone forced your car off the road. Her voice cracked. Deliberately. They'd been following you. Waiting for the right moment when you were isolated. My stomach dropped. Who? Enemies of Giovanni's. People trying to hurt him through you. She looked up, eyes wet. Your car went down an embankment. Rolled 3 times. You weren't found for almost an hour. I gripped the arm of the chair I'd refused moments before. How bad? Severe head trauma. Multiple fractures. Internal bleeding. They airlifted you to the hospital. Induced a coma to let the swelling in your brain reduce. She wiped her face. We didn't know if you'd wake up. Giovanni stayed by your bed for 2 weeks straight. Wouldn't leave. Wouldn't sleep. Just held your hand and waited. But I did wake up. Yes. After 14 days. But when you did, the last 2 years were just gone. You thought it was 2 years earlier. Didn't remember Giovanni, the wedding, anything. The neurologist said it was retrograde amnesia. Traumatic brain injury sometimes causes it. And everyone decided lying was the best option. It wasn't lying. Lauren stood, pacing. The doctors said forcing the memories could cause more psychological damage. That recreating your relationship naturally might help them return without trauma. So Giovanni, your parents, Megan, me, we all agreed to try. To let you fall in love again without the pressure of remembering. That's insane. It was survival. She turned on me. You nearly died, Olivia. Your husband was destroyed. We were trying to protect you both. The word husband hit like a physical blow. I don't even know him. You did. You do. The woman you were before the accident loved him more than anything. But I'm not her anymore. Aren't you? Lauren moved closer. You fell for him again, within weeks. Same connection, same chemistry. That has to mean something. Before I could respond, her doorbell rang. She checked her phone, face going pale. It's Mom and Dad. You called them? They deserved to know you'd figured it out. My parents entered with expressions of careful concern. Mom rushed to me immediately, pulling me into a hug I couldn't return. Baby girl, we're so sorry. We wanted to tell you every single day. Then why didn't you? Dad settled onto the couch, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Because the alternative was worse. Watching you wake up to the reality that you'd lost 2 years, that you'd married someone you didn't remember, that people had tried to kill you. How do you process that all at once? So you made me think I was losing my mind instead. No. Mom gripped my hands. We were trying to give you a chance to heal. To remember naturally. By lying. By protecting you the only way we knew how. I pulled away from her. I want to see the medical records. Everything. Right now. Dad pulled out his phone, forwarding files that filled my inbox. Hospital admission records, brain scans, neurologist reports, all documenting Olivia Parker's admission 6 weeks prior with severe traumatic brain injury and subsequent amnesia. The evidence was irrefutable. But evidence and acceptance were different things. I need to talk to Giovanni, I said finally. Honey, maybe give it some time. Now. I need to talk to him now. Mom nodded reluctantly. I'll call him. He arrived within 15 minutes. Must have been waiting nearby, prepared for this conversation. When he walked into Lauren's apartment, the pain etched into his features made my chest constrict. Olivia. Just my name. Nothing else. Can we speak privately? Lauren's bedroom offered the only space. We stood on opposite sides, the bed between us like a demilitarized zone. Tell me everything, I demanded. From the beginning. No half-truths, no omissions. Everything. Giovanni leaned against the wall. Like standing unsupported required more energy than he possessed. We met 2 years ago. At an art gallery, actually. You were exhibiting your work. I was there with Franco on business but saw your photographs and couldn't look away. When I met you, I knew. Immediately. That you were going to change my life. What do you do? Really? I run an organization. Import-export is the legitimate face. Underneath, there are operations that exist in gray areas. Some illegal. Some just morally complicated. He met my eyes. I'm not a good man, Olivia. But I've tried to be better since meeting you. You're telling me I married a criminal. I'm telling you that you married someone who loved you enough to give you the choice. I told you what I was after 3 months. Showed you everything. Expected you to leave. His voice dropped. You stayed. Why would I do that? Because you saw past what I did to who I was trying to become. Because you believed in second chances. Because you loved me as much as I loved you. He pushed off the wall. We got married 6 months ago. Small ceremony. Just family and close friends. You wore white roses. Said they reminded you of first snowfall. The detail struck something deep. White roses. Snow. A flash of memory so brief I couldn't grasp it. The accident. I prompted. My fault. I should have sent security with you. Should have insisted you didn't take that job. But you were so excited about the landscape work, and I couldn't deny you anything. Self-loathing saturated every word. They used it against us. Tracked you. Waited until you were vulnerable. Forced you off the road. Who? Rivals. They've been dealt with. The way he said it suggested permanence. And you decided lying was better than just telling me. The neurologist was explicit. Dr. Reynolds. He said forcing traumatic memories could cause irreparable psychological damage. That allowing them to return naturally through familiar experiences was the safest path. Giovanni crossed his arms. So we recreated our first meeting. Our first dates. Gave you the chance to fall in love without the weight of expectations. Except I did fall in love. The admission hurt. With someone who doesn't exist. I exist. He moved closer. Every moment was real. The only difference is you didn't remember the history. But the connection. The feelings. Those were genuine. How would I know? How would I know what's real when everyone's been performing roles? Because you feel it. He reached for my hand. I didn't pull away. Your body remembers even when your mind doesn't. The way you respond to my touch, the way you laugh at my jokes, the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. That's not performance. That's truth. I wanted to argue, wanted to be angry. But standing there, his hand in mine, warmth spreading up my arm, I couldn't deny the pull. Couldn't deny that every cell in my body recognized him, even when my conscious mind drew blanks. I need time, I whispered. Take all the time you need. He released my hand reluctantly. I'll wait, however long it takes. Even if you never remember, even if you decide this isn't what you want, I'll wait. What if I can't be her, the woman you married? You are her. Memory doesn't define identity. You're still Olivia, still the woman who sees beauty in storms, who speaks 5 languages when she's nervous, who eats ice cream directly from the container at midnight. A sad smile touched his lips. Still the woman I love more than my own life. I left Lauren's apartment alone, refused rides from everyone, needed to walk, to think, to process the impossible reality that I'd lived an entire life I couldn't access. My phone rang as I reached my building. Unknown number. I answered anyway. Miss Parker? I slept on the far edge of the bed, a country away, though only an arm's length apart. Before dawn, he tucked a blanket over my shoulders and left a glass of water on my nightstand, the way muscle memory sets your body moving while the mind is still lost. We were both learning how to love without a map. Dr. Reynolds. Your family asked me to reach out. I'd like to schedule an appointment to discuss your recovery. Recovery? Like I was broken. Maybe I was. Tomorrow, I agreed. I'll come tomorrow. That night, I lay in bed staring at wedding photographs I'd pulled from that hidden folder. Studied the woman in white who wore my face but lived in memories I couldn't reach. She looked happy, radiant, completely in love with the man whose arms wrapped around her. I tried to remember, tried to force something, anything, to surface. Nothing came, just the persistent sense that I'd lost something vital I'd never get back. Dr. Reynolds' office occupied the top floor of a medical building I'd never visited but somehow felt familiar. Glass walls overlooking the city, modern furniture and calming grays. A receptionist who greeted me by name before I'd introduced myself. Miss Parker. Dr. Reynolds is expecting you. Please go right in. The neurologist was younger than I'd imagined. Maybe 45, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He stood when I entered, extending a hand. Olivia, I'm so glad you agreed to meet with me. You're the one who prescribed the vitamins. Not a question. Yes. Post-viral immune support was the cover story we agreed upon with your family. He gestured to a chair. The real medication was neurological support supplements to aid recovery from traumatic brain injury. I sat because my legs felt unsteady. Everyone keeps using that phrase. Traumatic brain injury. Like if you say it clinically enough, it won't sound as devastating. Would you prefer a different term? I'd prefer the truth, all of it. No more careful omissions or medical euphemisms. He pulled up files on his computer, turning the monitor so I could see. Brain scans filled the screen. My brain. Before and after images that showed damage I couldn't interpret but understood was serious. 6 weeks ago, you sustained severe head trauma when your vehicle went off the road. The impact caused subdural hematoma, cerebral edema, and multiple contusions across the frontal and temporal lobes. His finger traced areas on the screen. We induced a medical coma to reduce brain swelling. You were unconscious for 14 days. And when I woke up, you had retrograde amnesia spanning approximately 2 years. Everything before that threshold remained intact. Everything after was simply gone. I stared at the images. My brain, damaged, changed. Why 2 years specifically? Traumatic amnesia doesn't follow neat timelines. The injury affected areas responsible for memory consolidation and retrieval. The 2-year mark likely corresponds to when those specific neural pathways were most active in forming recent long-term memories. Can it come back? Dr. Reynolds leaned back, choosing words carefully. Sometimes, partial recovery is more common than complete restoration. Fragments might return. Emotional memories often precede factual ones. But I can't promise full recovery. Enforcing it, telling me everything immediately, could have caused additional psychological trauma. When someone loses memories of significant life events, especially positive ones like marriage, forcing confrontation with that loss can trigger depression, anxiety, even dissociative episodes. We chose gradual reintroduction because research suggests experiential relearning is safer than cognitive bombardment. You mean lying to me was safer? I mean protecting your mental health while giving your brain time to heal was our priority. No apology in his tone. Just clinical assessment. The approach we took has shown success in similar cases, allowing you to develop feelings naturally, without the pressure of remembering, created authentic emotional connections that might trigger memory restoration. And if it doesn't work, then you've still fallen in love with your husband, built a foundation for moving forward even without accessing the past. A knock interrupted. The door opened before either of us could respond. Mom and Dad entered, followed by Giovanni. They must have been waiting together. Mom's eyes were red. Honey. Doctor. Reynolds said you wanted the complete medical history. I want everything. Hospital records, the accident report, every decision you made while I was unconscious and couldn't consent. Dad pulled out folders, thick with documentation. It's all here, every test, every consultation, every discussion we had about the best path forward. I took the files, hands shaking slightly. Giovanni remained by the door, giving me space, but clearly struggling with the distance. The accident, I said, looking at him. Tell me exactly what happened. He moved closer, but only to the chair beside mine. Not touching. You were returning from a landscape shoot in a rural area, 2 hours outside Chicago. I was in a meeting with Franco and several associates. We'd been negotiating a territorial dispute that had turned hostile. With who? A rival organization. Russian. They wanted access to shipping routes we controlled. I refused. They retaliated by targeting you. His jaw clenched. They'd been surveilling us for weeks. Knew your schedule, your routes, when you'd be alone. How did they force me off the road? Tactical vehicle intercept. They boxed you in, then rammed your car from the side. You went through a guardrail, down an embankment. The car rolled 3 times before coming to rest against trees. He closed his eyes briefly. You weren't found for 47 minutes. By then, you'd lost significant blood from internal injuries. Mom made a choking sound. Dad's arm went around her shoulders. Life flight brought you to Northwestern Memorial. You went straight into surgery for the hematoma, then intensive care. Giovanni's hands fisted on his knees. I arrived at the hospital while you were still in surgery. Stayed there. Didn't leave until you woke up 2 weeks later. And the people who did this? No longer a concern. The finality in his voice left no room for questions. When I woke up, I prompted Dr. Reynolds. You were confused, disoriented, asked for your sister. When your family arrived, you referenced events from 2 years prior as if they'd happened yesterday. Didn't recognize Giovanni at all. Became agitated when we tried to explain the gap. He pulled up more files. We ran extensive cognitive testing. The amnesia was clean. No memories of meeting Giovanni, dating him, the wedding, your married life together. Just complete absence. What did I say when I didn't recognize him? Giovanni's voice came out rough. You asked who I was. Why a stranger was in your hospital room. When I tried to tell you we were married, you panicked, thought we were lying, trying to manipulate you. The pain in his expression made my chest ache. That's when we consulted specialists, Dad continued. Multiple neurologists, psychologists, trauma experts. Everyone agreed that forcing the memories could cause more harm than good. So you orchestrated an elaborate deception. We recreated your life, Mom corrected. Set you up in your old apartment that we'd maintained as a studio. Made sure your work was waiting. Created the conditions that existed before you met Giovanni. And then made me fall in love with him again. We gave you the opportunity, Giovanni said quietly. The falling was yours. Dr. Reynolds stood, I have your discharge paperwork from the hospital. Surgical notes. Everything documented. You're welcome to seek second opinions. Talk to other specialists. But I stand by our approach. Can I see the house? I asked Giovanni. The one we supposedly shared? It's yours. Our home. Not supposedly. He pulled keys from his pocket. I'll take you now if you want. The drive took 30 minutes. Giovanni drove in silence while I watched Chicago transform from urban to suburban to estate. The house sat behind gates that opened to his touch. Stone and glass architecture. Modern but warm. Gardens that even in autumn looked meticulously maintained. Inside felt like stepping into someone else's dream. Open floor plan. Art on walls I would have chosen. Furniture arranged how I preferred. And photographs. Everywhere. Us. Together. Laughing, traveling, living a life I couldn't access. This was your office. Giovanni opened a door to a room I'd clearly designed myself. Photography equipment, editing station, prints covering walls. My work. Better than anything in my portfolio. Matured. Evolved. The bedroom nearly broke me. Our bed. Closet full of my clothes beside his. Bathroom with 2 sinks, my products lined up next to his cologne. Evidence of shared daily life in every detail. There's more. He led me to a study. Pulled a leather journal from a desk drawer. You kept this. Documenting our relationship. From the first meeting through the wedding. I opened to a random page. My handwriting. Dated 8 months ago. Giovanni surprised me with a weekend in Napa. We toured vineyards, tasted wine until we were giggling like teenagers. At dinner, he asked what I loved most about us. I said how he sees me, really sees me. Not just the surface, but everything underneath. The fears and dreams and contradictions. And he doesn't try to change any of it, just loves me as I am. Tears blurred the words. This woman, this version of me who wrote with such certainty, such joy. I didn't know her. I'm sorry. Giovanni's voice cracked. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you. That my world, my enemies, they hurt you. Cost you this. I looked up at him, this man I'd fallen for, who turned out to be my husband, who'd orchestrated an elaborate recreation of our courtship to spare me pain. I don't know how to be her, the woman who wrote this. You don't have to be her. You just have to be you. What if I never remember? What if this is permanent? Then we build new memories. Start fresh. Fall in love again without the weight of what came before. He moved closer. I told you before. I'll wait. However long it takes. Even if it's forever. That's not fair to you. Loving you is the only fair thing I've ever done. I closed the journal. Looked around this room that should feel like home but felt like a museum. I need time to process this. All of it. Take all the time you need. The house is yours. I'll stay elsewhere. Where will you go? I have properties. Places that are mine alone. You need space to figure out what you want without me crowding you. He left me there, in our house, surrounded by evidence of a life I'd lost. I wandered through rooms, touching furniture, studying photographs, trying to force recognition that wouldn't come. In the master bathroom, I found more of the vitamins. Post-viral immune support. The lie that had kept me compliant. I dumped them down the sink. My phone rang. Megan. I answered this time. Are you okay? I don't know. Am I? Is any of this okay? Probably not, but it's what we have. She paused. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. We were trying to help. I know. I understand that now. Doesn't make it hurt less. Do you love him? Still? Even knowing everything? I thought about Giovanni's hands. Careful and gentle. His eyes when he looked at me. The way my body responded to his presence like coming home to something familiar. Yes, which might be the most confusing part of all this. Then maybe that's what matters. Not the memories you lost, but the feelings you found. After we hung up, I lay in the bed I'd apparently shared with Giovanni for 6 months. His side still smelled like cedar and something darker. I pressed my face into his pillow and tried to remember, tried to access even one clear memory of choosing him, loving him, marrying him. Nothing came. Just the persistent ache of loss for something I couldn't even properly grieve. But underneath that ache, something else stirred. Recognition. Not of memories, but of rightness. Like my soul knew what my mind had forgotten. Maybe that would have to be sufficient for now. I spent a week alone in the house Giovanni and I had shared. A week of therapy sessions with Dr. Reynolds, of reading my own journal entries like they belonged to a stranger, of touching furniture and trying to force connections that remained stubbornly absent. Megan showed up on day 5 with takeout, and tears already streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry," she said, before I'd even let her fully inside. "I'm so sorry. I hated every second of lying to you. I cried myself to sleep most nights knowing you were confused, and I couldn't just tell you the truth." We sat on the living room floor, containers of Thai food between us, and she told me everything. How Giovanni had called her from the hospital, voice destroyed, begging for help. How they'd all gathered in a conference room with Dr. Reynolds, and decided together that gradual reintroduction was safest. How she'd practiced conversations in her mirror, rehearsing casual lies until they sounded natural. "You have to understand," she said, gripping my hands. "We weren't trying to manipulate you. We were trying to protect you from a truth that could have broken you completely. I know, and I did. Understanding and forgiving were different processes, but I was working toward both. I'm not angry anymore, just sad, for all of us. Do you love him? Still? I think I never stopped. My body remembered even when my mind couldn't." Lauren came the next day, brought photo albums I'd never seen. Us as children, teenagers, adults navigating life together. Then newer photos. Me and Giovanni. The progression of our relationship documented in careful chronology. "I watched you fall for him the first time," she said, flipping pages. "Watched you choose him despite knowing what his world was. You were so certain, so fearlessly in love." She looked up. "And now I'm watching you fall for him again. Same certainty, same fearlessness. What if I never remember the first time? Then you'll have made the choice twice. Loved him twice. How many people get that?" The perspective shift helped more than she knew. Giovanni respected my request for space, but sent texts. "Good morning. Thinking of you. Hope you're okay. Never demanding, never pushing. Just letting me know he was there. Waiting." On day 8, I called him. "I'm ready. Show me everything." He arrived within 20 minutes. Must have been nearby, hoping. We started at a restaurant downtown. Intimate, candlelit. He ordered for both of us without asking, then caught himself. "Sorry. Habit. We always shared everything. It's okay. I trust your taste." Over dinner, he told me the story. How he'd seen me across a gallery 2 years ago and known instantly his life had just changed. How he'd approached, expecting rejection, and received curiosity instead. How our first conversation had lasted 4 hours because neither could walk away. "When did you tell me what you really do?" 3 months in. I took you to a safe house. Showed you documents, introduced you to Franco, explained everything, expected you to leave. His hand found mine across the table. You stayed, said you saw who I was trying to become, not just who I'd been. After dinner, we drove to the church where we'd married. Empty now. Quiet. Giovanni led me to the altar. You wore white roses in your hair. Said they reminded you of fresh snow. Your vows made me cry, which embarrassed me in front of Franco. A sad smile. You promised to love me through whatever came. And you did, even when my world tried to kill you. Standing there, I felt something. Not memory exactly. More like echo. Residual emotion that my body had stored even as my mind forgot. Warmth spreading through my chest. Recognition without conscious recollection. I feel something, I whispered. Not memory, but something. His eyes lit with desperate hope. That's how it might come back. Feelings first, facts later. Doctor. Reynolds said, "Stop quoting Dr. Reynolds. Just be here with me." He pulled me close. We stood in the church where we'd married, and I let myself feel without forcing memory. Let my body remember what my mind couldn't access. The next location was a rooftop bar. The same one where we'd had dinner weeks ago. But this time, Giovanni took me to the edge, to the spot where rain hammered glass barriers during storms. We came here during a thunderstorm last year. You photographed lightning striking the lake. Said it looked like the city was fighting back against the sky. He stood behind me, arms around my waist. Told me you loved me for the first time, right here, while rain tried to drown us both. The sensation hit harder this time. Déjà vu so powerful I gasped. For a split second, I remembered. Actually remembered. The smell of rain. The sound of thunder. The feeling of certainty when I'd turned in his arms and spoken those 3 words. Then it was gone. Slipped away before I could grasp it fully. I almost had it, I said, frustrated tears building. It was right there. That's progress. That's more than you've had in weeks. He turned me to face him. We'll keep trying, however long it takes. Over the following days, we visited more places. The botanical garden where he'd proposed. The beach in Michigan where we'd spent our honeymoon. Each location triggered fragments, emotional echoes. Brief flashes that dissolved before solidifying into actual memory. Dr. Reynolds explained it during my next appointment. Emotional memory returns before episodic memory. Your hippocampus is damaged, but your amygdala, the emotional center, is intact. You're remembering how things felt before remembering what actually happened. Will I ever remember the events themselves? Maybe, maybe not. But the feelings are equally valid. Perhaps more so. I decided to move back into the house permanently. Our house. It felt right in ways I couldn't articulate. Giovanni had been staying at one of his properties downtown, giving me space. When I called to tell him I was staying, the relief in his voice made my decision feel inevitable. I'll continue staying away, however long you need. No, come home. It's your house too. Our house. Our house, I agreed. My parents came for dinner that weekend. Mom cried when she saw me and Giovanni moving around the kitchen together, the choreography natural despite my missing memories. Dad pulled me aside. You were so happy before. Happiest I'd ever seen you. I know you can't remember that, but I'm watching it happen again. Watching you choose him again. He squeezed my shoulder. That's not coincidence. That's truth. Megan and I rebuilt trust slowly. She stayed over one night, and we watched videos from my phone. Me and Giovanni at friends' weddings, on vacation in Italy, just being together in mundane daily life. The woman in the videos laughed freely, touched him constantly, looked at him like he was oxygen. I was really happy, I observed. You were complete. Like you'd found the piece that had always been missing. Do you think I can be that again? Without the memories? I think you already are. You're just building it differently this time. 3 weeks after learning the truth, Giovanni and I stood in the kitchen making breakfast together. He cracked eggs. I handled coffee. The radio played jazz. Rain pattered against windows. I love rain, I said absently. I know. He smiled. You always have. And in that moment, surrounded by the ordinary domestic beauty of Saturday morning, I realized something crucial. The memories might never fully return, but the love was here, present, real. Giovanni, he looked up from the stove. I love you. The words came easily, truthfully. I don't remember falling in love with you the first time, but I'm falling in love with you now, and that feels like it matters more. The spatula clattered to the counter. He crossed to me in 3 steps, cupping my face with hands that trembled slightly. Say it again. I love you. Not because I remember loving you before, because I choose you now. When he kissed me, it felt like coming home and starting new simultaneously. Past and present collapsing into a single moment of certainty. We'd rebuild, create new memories while fragments of old ones surfaced when they were ready. And maybe that was better than simply recovering what was lost. Maybe choosing him twice, loving him twice, meant something more profound than memory ever could. Outside, rain continued falling. Inside, we built our future from pieces of a past I couldn't access but didn't need to. Because this, right here, was real. And reality was turning out to be more than I'd dared hope for. 3 months had passed since that afternoon in Lauren's apartment when my world had fractured and reformed simultaneously. 3 months of therapy sessions where Dr. Reynolds patiently helped me navigate a reality that included memories I couldn't access and losses I couldn't properly grieve. Some fragments had returned. Small things mostly. The scent of cedar triggering sudden recognition of Giovanni's cologne. A particular jazz melody making me remember dancing in our kitchen, though the specific occasion remained elusive. Emotional echoes that felt more like déjà vu than concrete recollection. The brain is remarkable, Dr. Reynolds told me during one session. It finds ways to compensate for damage. You may never remember specific events, but the emotional connections are forming new neural pathways. So I'm building new memories on top of a foundation I can't see? Exactly. And that foundation is still there, supporting you even when you can't consciously access it. I'd returned to photography work, started taking assignments again. But this time, I documented everything deliberately. Shot after shot of our house, our life together, creating visual proof of days I refused to lose again. Giovanni appeared in more of my work now. Him reading in the study, cooking in the kitchen, standing at windows watching Chicago rain. "You're capturing me like I'm your subject," he'd observed one evening. "You are. My favorite one." We talked about the future in ways I gathered we had before, but now felt brand new. Children eventually. Travel to places my passport claimed I'd visited, but my memory insisted I hadn't. Growing old together in this house that felt increasingly like home. Work had expanded too. Giovanni's organization needed legitimate documentation for their legal operations. I'd started photographing shipping yards, warehouses, business meetings. Franco had even smiled when reviewing my portfolio. "She has your eye," he'd told Giovanni. "Sees what matters." She always has. The night everything crystallized happened exactly 3 months after Lauren had revealed the truth. Storm clouds had been building all afternoon, the kind of weather that made my soul sing even when I couldn't remember why. We stood on the veranda watching lightning fracture the sky. Rain hammered the city below, transforming familiar streets into something wild and beautiful. Giovanni's arm wrapped around my waist, his warmth anchoring me against the wind. "This," I said, not looking away from the storm. "This is what I love, what I've always loved." "I know. How? How do you know me better than I know myself?" "Because I've spent 2 years studying you like art, learning every preference, every fear, every dream." He turned me to face him. "And then I got to do it again these past months. Fall in love with you twice." The rain intensified, soaking us both through the covered veranda's gaps. I touched his face, tracing the sharp lines I'd memorized without conscious effort. "I love you," I said. Not the first time since learning the truth, but the first time with this particular clarity. Not because I remember falling in love before, not because everyone tells me I should, because standing here, right now, choosing you feels like the most honest thing I've ever done. His hands cupped my face with aching gentleness. "Say it again. I love you, Giovanni Moretti. I choose you. I choose us. I choose this life even knowing I can't remember all of it." When he kissed me, thunder rolled overhead and lightning painted the world silver. We were soaked. Cold. Perfect. "We should go inside," he murmured against my lips. "Not yet. Let me have this moment. I want to remember it." So we stood in the storm, holding each other while the city disappeared behind sheets of rain, and I burned every detail into memory. The way his shirt clung to his chest, how his eyes reflected lightning, the feeling of absolute certainty that this, right here, was truth. Later, wrapped in towels in our bedroom, he asked the question that had been hovering between us. "Do you want children? Eventually?" "Do we?" I countered. "Did we talk about this before?" "Yes. You wanted to wait until your photography career was more established, but you definitely wanted them." I thought about tiny humans with his dark hair and my eyes, about building a family from this second chance foundation, about creating memories that would be ours from the beginning. I want that. Not right away. But yes, eventually. The relief in his expression told me this mattered more than he'd admitted. "Whenever you're ready. We have time." Therapy continued through the following months. Some memories trickled back. I remembered our wedding vows, though not the ceremony itself. Recalled visiting Italy, though the specific locations remained foggy. My brain was healing in its own mysterious timeline, returning fragments when it felt safe. Work flourished. My portfolio expanded with projects I was conscious of creating. Giovanni supported every venture, attended every gallery showing, celebrated every success like it was his own. 6 months after choosing him in that storm, we decided together to try for a family. No pressure, no expectations, just us, building forward rather than trying to reconstruct the past. When the pregnancy test showed positive 3 months later, I stared at it with a mixture of joy and terror. "This is real," I whispered when I showed Giovanni. "We're really doing this. We're really doing this." He pulled me close, hand already moving to my still flat stomach. "Are you scared, terrified, and happy?" "Both. That's called being human, love." Now, 12 months since that afternoon when truth had destroyed and rebuilt my world, I sat in our study reviewing photographs. The album spread across my desk showed our life in careful chronology. Some images triggered recognition. Others remained beautiful mysteries. Giovanni appeared in the doorway, coffee in hand. "How are you feeling?" I touched my stomach, where our daughter grew. We'd found out the gender last week. A girl. I'd cried, though I couldn't say if I was remembering wanting a daughter or simply feeling it fresh. Good. Tired. Happy. He set the coffee down, moved behind my chair to look over my shoulder at the photos. "Do you remember that day?" The image showed us at the beach. Me in a yellow sundress, laughing at something off camera. Him looking at me like I'd hung the moon. "No, but I can see how happy we were." "Are," he corrected gently. "How happy we are." "Yes, are." Some memories might never return. Dr. Reynolds had been honest about that. The trauma was severe enough that portions of those 2 years could be permanently inaccessible. I'd made peace with that uncertainty. Made peace with being a woman who'd loved the same man twice, who'd chosen him in different timelines with the same certainty. I closed the album and turned to Giovanni. "Tell me again. About the first time we met. Which version?" A sad smile touched his lips. "The first time? Or the second?" "Both. Tell me both." So he did. Told me about seeing me across a gallery 2 years ago, and knowing his life had just changed. Told me about approaching me weeks ago and falling in love all over again. Told me stories about a life I'd lived but couldn't fully access, and about the life we were building now. Outside, rain began falling. Of course it did. The city transformed under water's touch, becoming something new while remaining fundamentally itself. Like me. Like us. I stood, took his hand, led him to the window. We watched Chicago disappear behind rain, and I thought about all the versions of myself that had stood here. The woman before the accident. The woman who woke without memories. The woman I was becoming now. Different. Same. Evolving. "I'm glad you waited," I said quietly. "Glad you let me fall in love with you again instead of just telling me I already had. Even knowing we could have avoided months of confusion. Especially because of that. I got to choose you twice, Giovanni. How many people get that gift?" He rested his hand over mine on my stomach. Our daughter moved beneath our touch, a reminder that we were building forward, creating a future that didn't require perfect memory of the past. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For choosing me. Both times. For being brave enough to love me even when you couldn't remember why." I turned in his arms, meeting his dark eyes that I'd memorized twice. It was never about memory. It was always about truth. And the truth is, some part of me has always known you. Will always know you. Memory or no memory. The rain continued. Inside, we held each other and planned futures built on fractured pasts. My photography career was thriving. His organization was expanding into more legitimate ventures. Our daughter would arrive in 6 months, born into a family that understood the value of second chances. I might never remember our first kiss, might never recall the exact moment I decided to marry him, but I remembered this. Every moment from this point forward, I was fully conscious, fully present, fully choosing this life, and that mattered more than any lost memory ever could. Mom texted every morning now, photos of her garden, the baby blanket growing longer row by row. Dad pretended not to cry on video calls and failed beautifully. Megan kept my calendar brutal and my coffee gentle. Lauren sent me voice notes reminding me to eat, to sleep, to be patient with a brain that heals like a shy animal, slowly, then all at once.